trade my time for only dollar signs.
Hi, I'm Chris J. Hudson. I sing and compose music and also voice act in LA. Every song has a concept, and those initial ideas come from people and stories in real life. They've enriched my mind and made me a more complete person, so I figured, hey, why not share it with the world? You can only fit so much into one song. So without further ado, welcome to Think Outside the Box. If you're tired of the status quo, this podcast explores the freshest ideas and profiles inspiring people who are doing things differently. So let's go. This is the first of many episodes in the Alternative Career Series. Each episode will focus on an extraordinary individual who decided to pursue a career way outside the norm, with spectacular results. Ever think about the meaning behind Kanye's classic song Spaceships off his college dropout album? Life's too short to spend a third of it doing something you hate. I did this interview a couple weeks after I left my job in customs brokerage to pursue my calling, which is to expand views of what's possible. Even if the stories you hear in this podcast don't inspire you to change your life, when one of your friends or family decides to, hopefully, instead of telling them that they can't do it, maybe you'll be the one voice telling them that they can. My life's purpose is to use my talents to help create harmony and a more tolerant world. Everyone should have the freedom to live whatever a fulfilled life is for them. I gotta tell you, this interview was magic. I live in the Valley and was taking a yoga class in Woodland Hills when I decided to take the scenic route down to Topanga Canyon Boulevard for this interview. It's one of the most beautiful drives ever, and the road ends on PCH, where I was met with the sparkling blue water of the Pacific and the sound of seagulls on the breeze. It was one of those moments where I thought, I would have never had this experience if I didn't decide to finally do me. We recorded this interview on location at Guru's yoga studio right up the coast in the Pacific Palisades. Guru Mitar and I got along great. As you'll see, she has a sparkling personality and a truly amazing and inspiring story. We laughed a lot. There was so much great content in this interview that I had to separate it into two parts. I couldn't bear to cut our hour talk into just 30 minutes, so next week, part 2 will air. Without further ado, let's begin. I'm here right now talking with the inspirational teacher, Guru Mitar. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you coming to tell us your story and to enlighten us a little bit. Let's start from the top.
Well, I was born in Vietnam. My dad was U.S. military, and so I came to the United States when I was young. The fall of the Vietnam War, I was actually only 2 years old.
Wow.
And yeah, when I came to the United States, my dad grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Okay.
And that's where I ended up.
Okay.
The tropics of Vietnam to Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Wow. It's quite a change.
Big change, yeah.
All right. Well, how was it adjusting to life in South Dakota, coming from like a different background as the other kids?
Well, since I was so young, I don't really remember the beginning of entering the world. I remember growing up not being able to talk about anything about the war. Mm-hmm. It was like a forbidden topic. So I really didn't know how my parents met. I just knew that something was wrong and we weren't supposed to talk about it. And as I started to get older, getting into the school age, it wasn't fun. I was a brown girl living in a very white community. Yeah. And being different, as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
it's never easy. But to top it all off, I had a learning disability. So not only was I different, I was also stupid.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was hard. It was hard. According to the kids, I was stupid.
Yeah.
Kids are so truthful, right?
Yeah, they can be mean sometimes, though.
My only true friend was actually the sun. I would walk to school every day, and whether it was sunny or not, I knew the sun was there and would answer me in the most loving way of any questions I had. I didn't understand why people were mean to me. The sun would just, give me these encouraging messages. So I felt like I really am fortunate that I connected so well with something, because if I didn't have the sun, I don't know that I would have made it.
Since things were probably a little harder for you, Did you ever dream about maybe moving to a larger city, with more cultural acceptance?
Absolutely. I knew that, or actually, I can't say I knew. I felt like if I lived somewhere big, then I would fit in.
Yeah.
One of my favorite TV shows was Laverne and Shirley. Are you familiar with them?
Yep.
Doing it our way.
I was going to say just the theme song.
My theme, I would change it. Doing it my way. Yeah. And so I just had this vision that if I moved to a big city, then I would fit in and everything would be perfect. And so I did exactly what Laverne and Shirley would do. I moved. I moved to Los Angeles. Yeah. Paradise, I call it.
Yeah. I'm kind of biased because I live here too, but I would definitely agree with you. What was it about Los Angeles that hooked you initially?
Well, I have to be truthful. California was not on my radar. If you were to go back 20, 25-ish years ago, the only thing I knew about California was what the news media would tell me. And according to the news media, this was a very bad place. You had sick alerts, fires, riots, and earthquakes. And that's all I knew about you.
Yeah.
But my best friend in the whole wide world, she lived here. And so I did. Eventually, after her begging many, many years, I did finally come visit her. And when I landed in Orange County, it was nothing like what the news had shown me. It was beautiful. Palm trees.
Yeah.
I still remember my first sunset in Laguna Beach. We were laying on the beach watching the sun. It was warm and there was no mosquitoes. I mean, like pure paradise. So 6 months later, I packed my bags. Anything that would fit into my 4-door white Corolla, I squished it in, and I left my boyfriend of 2 years.
Wow.
And cried, drove for days,
hard
cried
choices.
all the way here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all of Vern and Shirley's fault.
You got to do what you got to do. I feel the same way. I did the same thing. I left my girlfriend of 2 years when I moved here 2 years ago.
Wow, the magic of two.
Yeah. So, well, when you moved here, what career path did you take initially?
Well, I had plans, the smart, small town girl that I was.
Yeah.
So my original plan was I'd worked as a counselor in group homes and juvenile detention centers. So it seemed like the logical thing. I would come here and do the same thing that I knew. I was fortunate because there was a woman that I knew that had connections in the Los Angeles parole department. So she was in the world. She set up some interviews for me. And I learned very quickly, the kids are not as nice as they are in South Dakota.
Nobody's as nice as they are in
It was
South Dakota.
a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah.
That I have to admit, I was actually scared as I would walk through some of these detention centers and group homes.
I could see.
Yeah, so I was like, this is not going to be the career path I'm going to continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really didn't know because I didn't really know what else to do. I remember when I was growing up that my dad would always say, get a good education and work for a good company. So I had to find that good company.
Right.
Being new to California, I knew nothing. Walked into a temp agency, asked them just to send me wherever, and I would do whatever. And then when I find a good company, I'll find a job. And so I did that. And then I found a job, and then I found another job, and then I found another job. Like, oh my gosh, holy crap. Every 2 years, I would change jobs. Well, something about this 2-year thing. Oh, wow. Okay.
Sensing a theme.
Seems to be a theme. So, but it was paying bills, right?
Yeah.
I ended up in corporate America. It would pay bills. Something would happen for some reason, next thing I knew, career change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that was fun. It was fun. But I was paying my bills, and that's what mattered.
Yeah. Well, I think probably a lot of people do. But there was something in you that wasn't satisfied. And so I researched that you became a small business owner.
I did.
Tell us about that.
So while I was in corporate America, I was dibbling, dabbling, doing things I was not supposed to. I opened a little kiosk. When you go to the mall and you see those little kiosks? So I actually opened a makeup kiosk.
Oh, okay.
And so I got a little taste of owning my own business, and I loved the freedom. I loved the, was different. Being corporate America, it was like I'm working for someone else's dream. You know, it wasn't my, like, I didn't have ownership for it. And now it was like, oh my God, this is mine. And so I had this crazy idea to take it to the next level. My girlfriend, she actually owned Halloween stores. And during the busy week of Halloween, I would go volunteer my time to work for her in exchange for a costume. So for 1 week, for 3 years, I would go work in her Halloween store. And then one year I asked her, do you think I could own my own store? She said, yes. And so I did. I flew my mom in from Vietnam. I was like, hey, Mom, we're going to own a Halloween store. And she thought I was absolutely crazy. And our first year was absolutely crazy, challenging. We didn't know a lot about running a Halloween store. But eventually I ended up doing it for 10 years. You know, learned the tricks and the trades and ended up having my Halloween store for 10 years.
You get adjusted, you get used to it, then you get savvy.
Yeah, and it was hard. I mean, I have to admit, we worked 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. It was so intense that I always would get an apartment right across the street from my Halloween store so that I could just walk across the street. So it was long hours, long days, but it was only 4 months out of the year.
That's nice.
I could handle 4 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what did you do in the other 8 months?
Well, that is where I got to really take a deep dive, like let's say like a soul search and dive in. Because truth be said, life is not easy. And we have a lot of situations that happen in our lives that are not so easy. And one of mine was a divorce. And when I was in my divorce, I had really never knew how to handle emotions or feelings or anything. My entire life, I was just strong, push it out of the way, get through it type of person.
Yeah.
And so when my divorce came, that's what I did. I was strong. Nobody knew I was struggling. My yoga teacher actually said to me, if you do not let yourself feel what you need to feel, your body is going to show it. And I didn't really understand what he meant by that. He's like, you know, you need to cry. And I was like, I don't need to cry. You know, my brain couldn't wrap around that. But then my body actually did show it. And I got shingles. So then I understood, which opened a door for me of trying to like, okay, body and feelings and like, you know, this mystery of that. And I started to investigate a little bit more. It was hard. I didn't really know like how to work with it. So I could find peace. And there was one thing that could find my peace, and that was yoga. So I would take 3, sometimes 4 yoga classes a day, just so I know, crazy, right?
Wait a minute. I thought a week was going to come after that sentence. Like, no.
No, I would, because our minds are crazy, but not on the yoga mat. I had to be so focused on how I was going to do the pose and this and like the breath and all that. So that my mind couldn't do anything other than that moment of yoga.
Right.
But there was one problem.
What's that?
Yoga studios aren't open all night. Yeah. And so in the evenings, I found alcohol became my new best friend. Yeah. And so I was going down a dark road. I was going down a very dark road. And so dark that one time I got really, really drunk. And one of my friends shared with me that I needed to see a therapist, that I was really angry. And I did. I trusted him enough and I went to see a therapist, spent thousands and thousands of dollars on therapy.
That's pricey.
It is.
Especially here.
But what I realized, on some level, I needed my therapist's approval. And so there I was, paying thousands of dollars, giving the therapist the information on an unconscious level, trying to get my therapist's approval. And I realized, whoa, this isn't going to work. And that's when my real search started. I wanted to find other ways, you know, to somehow be able to, I got a taste that yoga can still the mind. But how do you take that off the mat? You know, I only got the taste of on the mat.
Yeah.
And I found my way into a Kundalini yoga class. And during the Kundalini yoga class, I started to realize that yoga is actually a spiritual practice.
Yeah, more than just poses.
Yeah. I just thought it was the poses and the good-looking butt I had. So I continued, and every year, I would study different modalities, finding different modalities that could really work on my mind. I ended up, getting my coaching certificate. I ended up getting my master's in spiritual psychology. I got certified in not one yoga tradition, but 2 yoga traditions. Every personal development class you can possibly think of, I have taken.
You went all in.
All in. I became a personal development junkie. I prefer to say devotee, but all my friends are like, you are crazy. That's all you do is all these trainings and that. But I really loved it. I really did love it. I traveled the world seeking some of the best teachers and traveled everywhere. My favorite place ended up being Thailand, the happiest place on earth.
The happiest place on earth?
Sorry, Disneyland. But so every year I would close my Halloween store. I would go to Thailand, recuperate, get the body back into whoa, after those long hours.
Yeah.
And then I would find a modality, sometimes I would go to India, to Cambodia. I would just go in search of finding some of the best teachers.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you studied all over the world?
All over the world. I wanted to understand. I mean, really that this is life. It just seemed like struggle after struggle after struggle. There's got to be more meaning to this. In Thailand, spending time with the monks and learning the Buddhist traditions, I just started to open up, to really understanding the whole process of the human experience, we'll say. Yeah.
Wow. And so did the answers come right away, or did it take a little bit of time?
Lots of time.
Lots of time. That's usually how it happens.
I wish it could be like the Matrix. They just download it right into me and then watch out, got it. Doesn't work like that.
No, unfortunately. It's quite a journey. So did you do that for the entire 10 years that you had your Halloween store?
I did. And you would think what I created was a pretty good life. I had a Halloween store. I only worked 4 months out of the year. I got to travel. I went and studied.
Sounds like paradise to me.
Good, yeah?
Yeah.
But I still wasn't happy.
No, still questions?
Something was missing. I couldn't pinpoint it. I actually was meeting privately with one of my teachers, Guru Singh, and had shared with him, I have everything. And I just, something is still missing. And he shared with me that my Halloween business brought me great abundance, which allowed me to study throughout, many traditions. However, it is not my destiny. It is not my life's purpose. And when I find my destiny, when I find my life's purpose, I will find happiness. That's
great advice.
I didn't think so at the time. I'm like, come on. What? You want me to give up this?
I mean, I would have some questions too. Wait a minute. That sounds great and all, but you want me to do that right now?
He's one of those spiritual people.
Oh,
I didn't believe I was. It's one of those.
Right. It's easy for you. Wow.
And then months later, I was in a breathing session. I was doing a deep, deep breathing journey. And in that breathing journey, it's going to sound crazy, but I was talking to my angels and my guides. And my angels and my guides shared with me that it was time. And it was the most beautiful experience. They were sharing with me it was time for me to share everything I'd known. And then at that point, I just started crying. I wasn't good enough. And I started to realize here I was taking all these trainings, taking all these things, because I ultimately didn't think I was good enough. But if I took one more training, if I took one more thing, and they kept, in the most loving voice, kept saying, you are enough, showed me all of the teachings that I had learned. And I just cried and I cried and I cried. They started showing me visuals of what I do today. I know it sounds crazy. At the time, it didn't all make sense. The messages, the pictures. I went home and I made this little picture story of what I wrote, the words I saw, I ripped out pictures that I saw. And in that, they also shared that I needed to sell my business.
Wow.
And so I did. I took the leap of faith.
You took the leap of faith.
The leap of faith.
You followed through.
Yeah.
Wow, that is such a big change. You had the financial success. You had the freedom. 4 months on, 8 months off. That's a dream for most people.
Yeah, I remember the week that, because I did put an exit strategy. So I didn't do it like overnight. I put in an exit strategy because, what I was looking at doing was becoming a yoga teacher, workshops and all that. But I didn't have that currently as a life situation. So I knew that there was going to be a little bit of lag time. And so I put in an exit strategy. I remember sharing with my mom I was going to do this. She absolutely thought I was crazy. So I didn't share it with many people what my plans were. But the week of Halloween, my last year in business, I remember being on the phone with my brother, and I was going to change my mind.
Yeah.
Because it was really sinking in.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's no way I can create what I've created, working 4 months out of the year, getting digital. There's no way I could do this again. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I was some thing that I had in a breathing session and I'm actually doing it. This is like, and my brother, not in one of those angelic calm voices, in a very loud, demanding, was like, are you kidding me right now? You hate what you do. You've done this for 10 years and look at what you created. It's like, imagine if you liked what you do, what you could create for your life.
Profound.
He's like, do it. And so I did.
Wow. You get a lot of good advice.
I know.
That's another theme of this
I feel like I have
show.
angels and guides that do pop up whenever I need them.
That's great. And super thankful that you're sharing that great advice with us. Well. So you made a transition, a huge leap of faith into the unknown. Quit the job, the financial freedom, the cool schedule, and you became a guru, a teacher. Tell us about the first initial experiences.
Oh my gosh. Well, I had this, today you would never know, but I had this deep, deep fear of talking in front of people.
Like that went away quick.
I would actually start trembling, start shaking, start crying. Yes. So I had to work through that. I remember when I took my first teacher training in Hatha yoga, my teacher had called on me and it was so bad that he let me sit down because I couldn't get through it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had to do a lot of work around that. I did a lot of work around that. I joined Toastmasters.
Oh
yeah. Exactly. Jump in and give a speech.
There it is.
And eventually did break through that fear of being able to speak in front of people. Eventually did talk yoga studios into giving me a chance. My only experience in the beginning was, I was a volunteer, volunteering my time at Terminal Island Prison. So I would teach yoga in the prisons, but that was really the only exposure I had to teaching.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh my God. I still teach there today.
Really?
12 years later, I still volunteer my time. Today I lead a whole team of teachers. So I have a whole team of teachers that go in prisons.
They go to prisons and teach yoga.
Yeah.
That sounds so crazy. That sounds like a documentary.
It's amazing.
Wow.
It's amazing. Yeah. And as a Kundalini yoga teacher, we close our classes with a blessing. That's usually a song, The Long Time Sunshine. And these men a cappella the song.
Really?
Most yoga classes, they turn on the CD or these men.
Birds chirping and stuff.
It's amazing. Yeah. So
wow, that would be so cool to hear that.
Yeah. So eventually I did work my way. I got sub opportunities. I subbed a lot. I created my own website. That's a whole nother story. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, and then after a few years of subbing, I finally started to get job opportunities as a teacher with my own classes. And I started leading workshops. One of the things I did, and my mom thought I absolutely was crazy. I started leading breathwork sound baths. I still remember my first breathwork sound bath. There were 2 people.
Got to start somewhere, right?
And my mom, because we realized my mom lived in Vietnam, so she only came when I would bring her here. And so the one time that I brought her here, with my new life, and that time one person showed up for the breathwork sound bath, and she's like, "See, I tell you, crazy idea. You give up store. This is why you did." I'm like, "No, Mom, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. I know it's gonna work.
Trust me."
And eventually it did. I mean, today my breathwork sound baths sell out. And it's because I experienced it. I experienced the transformation in those sessions, and so even when one person showed up, I remember the one girl. She's like, "Well, you don't have to do it." I'm like, "No, you're here. You've driven this far. Let's go. We're gonna do it." Yeah. And so,
wow, started small from humble beginnings, and now you're flourishing. Things are good.
Things are good.
So it was definitely, from what I hear, not an easy road when you first started.
Oh gosh, no. But is anything an easy road?
No.
And the thing is, like, when I look back on my life, really it's all those challenges that have really made it the best life. From having a learning disability.
Yeah.
Back when I was that stupid kid, it wasn't so fun. But because I had that learning disability, I had to learn ways to be able to teach myself, become visual, make diagrams and all that. So you take a workshop with me, I have amazing skills in teaching you. But that was because it was hard for me to learn, so,
makes sense.
that catalyst of me ending up in a divorce, I would have never, understood, emotions and all that. I could read about it in a book, but I had to go through it. I had to learn how to forgive, forgive myself. I was judging myself that, I was a horrible person somehow, that I created, and it was like through that experience, I got to learn how to love myself again. So those are some big lessons that you just can't read about and understand.
Yeah, it's huge. Or take a class. And, yeah, they say experience is the best teacher.
Yeah.
For sure. We've reached the end of the first half of our talk with Guru Mitar. We'll let you digest all that great insight for a week before the second course airs. Believe me, we only scratched the surface. Next week, we get into the heart of Guru Mitar's practice and go deep into health and wellness. There's a reason she's guru to the stars. Yep, I try to spoil my listeners. Hey, I just want you to live your best life. Thanks for listening. If you are enjoying this show, please be sure to rate, subscribe, and maybe leave a little comment. These things help to bring visibility to the podcast so that it comes up easier during searches. So, enjoy the closing theme, and remember, think courageously, live compassionately, and always do you.